All right, today we're jumping into a story that's, well, it's so personal but also feels universal to anyone who's ever felt like an outsider. We're talking about Marjane Satrapi's journey in Persepolis 2. You know, she leaves Iran for Vienna, and it's so much more than just moving. It's really the story of a teenager trying to figure out who she is and where on earth she fits in a world that's totally new and honestly pretty confusing. So, let's dive in. So right off the bat, Satrapi just throws us into the main conflict of her new life, this massive gap between the dream and the reality. I mean, on the one hand, you've got her fantasy of Europe. It's this perfect storybook place, like something out of Heidi. But then, what she actually walks into, a tiny, super tense apartment belonging to her mom's friend, just filled with these awful arguments about money and failure. The whiplash is intense, and it really sets the tone for everything to come. And to really get her journey, you have to understand why she left in the first place. I mean, this wasn't some vacation. This was an escape. She was running from a really strict religious regime, looking for freedom, for a society that was open and secular, a place where she could just be herself. And that hope, that powerful hope, is the engine driving this entire story. And this is where the irony just hits you right in the face. It's brilliant. She escapes religious fundamentalism in Iran with this dream of a secular, free Europe. And where does she land? A Catholic boarding house, run by nuns. I mean, you can almost hear her thinking, "You've got to be kidding me." Her big quest for freedom kicks off with a whole new set of religious rules. It's just, wow. All right, so that initial shock, it doesn't just fade away. It actually deepens into this really profound sense of being totally alienated. This first part of her new life is all about her being completely adrift in this new, totally unfamiliar world. And her world literally shrinks down. Look at this tiny room. For the first time in her life, she has to share her space. It's such a perfect symbol for how isolated she feels. Suddenly, there's no personal space, no privacy, and absolutely no real connection. This is the start of a really deep, kind of crushing loneliness.
And it's not just the big things. Even something as simple as going to the supermarket becomes this totally alien experience. I mean, think about it. After years of wartime rationing back in Iran, she walks into this Western supermarket and the sheer amount of stuff is just overwhelming. All those choices of laundry soap and pasta, it doesn't feel like freedom to her. It's just another thing screaming, "You don't belong here."
And the way this is drawn, it just perfectly shows that invisible wall that language can put up. She's right there in a room full of people. They're all laughing, they're all connecting over this movie. But for Marjane, it's just noise. She has no idea what's going on. She's completely locked out. It's the perfect picture of what it feels like to be totally alone in a crowd. Okay, but here's the thing. Marjane doesn't stay stuck in that lonely place forever. This next part is all about the turning point. It's where she kind of stops trying so hard to fit in with everyone else and starts to find her own people, her own tribe. And it's a community built on the one thing they all have in common, not fitting in. And this quote, this is the moment it all begins to shift. She makes a joke in class. It's actually based on a misunderstanding of a word, but people laugh. It seems like such a small thing, right? But for her, it is everything. For the first time, she's not just a ghost in the room. She's not invisible anymore. She made an impact. She existed. And that tiny little spark is the foothold she desperately needed. And from that one little spark, a whole community starts to form. Just look at this crew she ends up with. They're all misfits, every one of them. You've got a punk, a couple of orphans, an eccentric. She finally finds a place to belong, not by trying to hide what makes her different, but by leaning into it with other people who are different too. It's such a powerful idea, right? Her otherness actually becomes her ticket in. And here's where things get really interesting, kind of paradoxical. The very thing that caused her so much trauma, the thing that forced her to leave her home, her experiences with war, that suddenly becomes social currency. It's fascinating to her new friends. Can you imagine? What was a source of so much pain and fear for her is now this intriguing story. It makes her different for sure, but in a way that this new group actually finds cool. So this new social life she's building leads to one of the most emotional peaks in the whole book. It happens during Christmas, a time that can be incredibly lonely if you're an outsider. And it's here that she finds this completely unexpected, really profound sense of family. So picture this. The whole city is lit up, it's festive, everyone's celebrating. But for Marjane, all that cheer just makes her feel even more alone. The streets are empty, the boarding house is about to be deserted,
and she has nowhere to go. She is completely, utterly alone. You can just feel the crushing weight of it in this one image. And then this happens, a simple but incredible act of kindness. Her roommate Lucia sees how miserable she is and just invites her home for Christmas. It's not some big dramatic gesture. It's just a quiet, hey, you can come with us. But for Marjane, that simple invitation changes absolutely everything. And what's so powerful about this moment is what happens next. She spends the holiday with Lucia's family in Tyrol, and they're just so warm and welcoming, and in that, Marjane finds something she probably thought she'd lost forever, a family. So when she says Lucia with my sister, it has nothing to do with blood. It's all about this incredible bond that was built on pure kindness. For that short time, she had a sister, she had parents, she had a home.
So, okay, she's found a place to belong on the outside, but what about the inside? The last part of her journey we're going to look at today is all about building an internal identity. She starts this very deliberate project of reinventing herself, of creating a new Marjane who can actually make it in this new world. And how does she do it? She arms herself with books, with ideas. To hang with her intellectual, anarchist friends, she reads up on Bakunin. To make sense of her own life, she gets into Sartre and existentialism. And to figure out what it means to be a woman on her own terms, she reads Simone de Beauvoir. It's like she's trying on different philosophical outfits, seeing which ones fit, and actively building a new identity for herself piece by piece.
And here you see it all come together. In this amazing scene, a nun makes this prejudiced comment about Iranians, saying they're uneducated. Now, the old Marjane, the quiet, lonely one, she probably would have just let it slide. But not this new Marjane. She fights back. She uses her voice, her wit, and she stands right up to that prejudice. She's not just a passive observer anymore. She is in the driver's seat, actively defending who she is.
And in the end, this whole story leaves us with this really big question, one that I think resonates with anyone who's ever had to start over or felt like they didn't quite belong. As Marjane builds this new, stronger version of herself in Vienna, she's always wrestling with this tension. Which brings us to the question for all of us, really. When you're building a new life, a new identity, how do you figure out what parts of your old self you hold on to and what parts you have to let go?